And good afternoon again, everyone. This is Tom again from Roadrunner Garage again. And now I'm going to show you the 1971 Matchbox Collector Kit. There was some changes, I believe, in 71. The Matchbox logo was kind of in the process of changing to the more modern logo, as you can see. Changing to a more modern version. There were some changes in the lineup for 1971. I can see the regular Mustang became a drag car, and so did the Mercury Cougar. Became a drag car in 71. They had more fantasy cars. I think, again, they were trying to compete more with Hot Wheels, kind of how I gather it. They were coming up with more fantasy cars. Like, if you remember, a lot of the Hot Wheels cars from the late 60s, early 70s were quote-unquote fantasy vehicles, and that's what Matchbox was trying to compete with at the time. And they made, looking at the other catalogs from the 70s, they seemed to make more and more of them as time went along, the quote-unquote fantasy cars, like with the big engines and whatnot. They seem that as the time, as the years rolled on, it became more and more obvious. There's another one there. Yeah, it seems like that's kind of like they're trying to compete with Hot Wheels. There's the Mercury Capri. There's the Cougar. Was a regular stock Cougar. Now it became a drag car like the Mustang, like the 66 Mustang, 67 Mustang did. That's basically the lineup. There were a few changes that year. As you can see, that I think that Jeep was a new vehicle. That Jeep. Of course, they had the traditional cases. They had this, what's this here? Matchbox Auto Park set was kind of a cool thing. They had the pop-ups. They had them in 1970 as well. Also, this Matchbox Racetrack or Motorway was the same. They had that same thing in the 1970. Looks like they still use on some of their sets, they still use the older logo, but they did change to the newer logo on some. Steer and Go set, that was in the last catalog. The Super Kings, again, it looks like they were in the process of changing the wheels on the Super Kings as well as the regular 1 to 75s on some of them. You'll notice that more in the 1973 catalog, but some of them were already changing the wheels in 1971 to more of the super fast style wheels on these. They're changing more to the super fast style, if you want to call it that. And then there was some more new vehicles in the line, and as well as some of the traditional ones as well. There's the Class Combine. That was in the 1970 catalog. Now, they had a Speed King set, and this is when they really started changing to the super fast wheels on some of the Super Kings. As you can see, the Mercury Cougar, the Dodge Charger, the Mercury Wagon, Police Wagon, I think that's a Lamborghini Miura, as well as a few others. They were changing them to the super fast style wheels. Of course, they had their gift sets. Some of them still use the old Matchbox logo, and some use the more modern logo, as you can see on. So they were kind of in a. It seems like Matchbox was kind of in a transition at this time period in the early 70s. They were kind of transitioning to a more modern. I think they were trying to compete with Hot Wheels, which makes a lot of sense. Models of yesteryear again. Like I said before, these appear to be probably 1930s, originally 1920s or earlier vehicles. They eventually got morphed into some of the 1930s cars, like the Cord. I think they made a Cord in the late 70s eventually, but then, of course, you had the set. You could enjoy the official collector club, and the veteran car gifts as well. So there's a deep dive into the 1971 Matchbox catalog. Next up will be the 1973 version, but I hope you enjoyed this quick deep dive into this one for now, and beep, beep.